Welcome to the RavensSpace on YouTube. My name is Jason and this is RavensSpace Mailbag, where we answer your questions about the Baltimore Ravens. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Please subscribe to the RavensSpace on YouTube if you're not yet subscribed. I also want to thank our Patreon subscribers, because without you guys, none of this can happen. We'll hop right into the first question of the day. And this question comes from Harvey, and Harvey asks, where do you think the Ravens special teams players rank in the NFL? Thank you so much for your question, Harvey. And I think that overall, the Ravens have the #1 special teams unit in the league. And I'll go through player by player so you guys can just get a feel. So for Justin Tucker, we know he's the best kicker in the league, hands down. He was not on the top 100 by the players, which I thought was an injustice, but he's the best kicker in the league. Any coach would take their kicker and trade him with us. He's the best in the league. Point blank period, Hall of Famer, in my opinion. The next one is Sam Cook, the punter. Sam Cook, again, I think in my opinion, is one of the best punters in the league. He creates his own kicks, his own spin on the ball. He's a very, very hard punter to return because the ball does a lot of different things in the air. People aren't used to it. A lot of people are used to the spin going over the ball. A lot of kickers do that, a lot of punters do that, but Sam Cook has his own type of spins and everything. If you guys haven't caught it, there's a SportsCenter special on Sam Cook and how he creates kicks and his different types of punts. It was amazing. It shows you how complex that the punter position can be, even though usually we don't think of it as a key position in the NFL. And then the one area that we lack is in returner. I think the Ravens have a below average return squad. I don't think Campanaro has the top end speed to actually get into the end zone consistently. I think Chris Moore has that speed, but he's not polished in his move set. I think Campanaro is shifty and polished in his move set, but I don't think he's fast enough. And Chris Moore is fast enough, but it's not polished in that move set. And then, you know, if we have some undrafted free agents, we'll see what they can do. But in my opinion, those are the two. You can throw Ladarius Webb in there. Ladarius Webb right now is trash as a returner. He's very, very old. I don't think he ever had that shifty ability. He's very good at catching punts, so that's usually what the Ravens put him back there for. If you see a returner drop a ball, the next time they'll throw Ladarius Webb back there so they can make sure that they catch the ball and that error doesn't happen again. But overall, I would say that the Ravens have one of the best special teams units in the game. They have a money kicker, a money punter. They need to improve the returner, but even throughout the depth chart, I think like Brandon Aiyembedejo is one of the greatest cover linebackers in the game. And when I say cover, I don't mean in zone. I actually mean this time on kickoff returns. He goes down there, he makes tackles. On punts, he goes down there, he makes tackles. I think he's super talented at that. And I think he's a Pro Bowler at that level as a return specialist, a special team specialist to go down and make the tackles when you need them. So I think he's great. But I really do think the Ravens have the best special teams unit in the NFL. Thank you so much for your question, Harvey, and we'll move on to the next one. And this question comes from James, and James asks, how do you think our current receiving core ranks from Ravens receiving cores of the past? Thank you so much for your question, James. To be 100% honest, I'm just going back in my head. I think this is the best Ravens receiving core that we've ever had. I think Jeremy Maclin is a bona fide #1. I think Wallace is a borderline #1. And I think Perryman right now, if he takes that step up, he could be a borderline #1. When we go back into the Ravens' recent past, you don't want to go too far back because of how the game has changed. A receiver back then wasn't like a receiver now. The Baltimore Ravens receivers of the past usually haven't been that great. Again, it's the only position Ozzie Newsome has drafted that hasn't had a Pro Bowler. Right now, I think that the Ravens have the best receiving core they ever had. And it's just because when you go back to a couple years ago, you had like Anquan Bolden and Torrey Smith. Bolden was in his later years. He was right on the cusp of leaving his prime. So we had one great year in that Super Bowl year. But other than that, you know, he was an older receiver. You had Torrey Smith, who was raw when he was with the Ravens. And his best route was the deep route. He wasn't a real route runner. With this group right here, you have a great route runner in Jeremy Maclin, who has that top end speed. You have Mike Wallace, who also has the top end speed. And then you have Breshad Perriman, who has the height, the speed, and the leaping ability to make great plays down the field. And I think this really might be the most talented. Now, last year's squad was also talented, but I do think that Jimmy Macklin right now is a step above Steve Smith in his last year in the NFL. And so I would give it to this year's team and not last year's team. But this was a great question from you, James. Thank you so much for your question, and we'll go on to the next one. And this question is from Peter, and Peter asks, love the channel. I have been hearing disappointing reports about Carr's play in camp. How do you feel about these reports? Thank you so much, Peter, for your question. And I'm having mixed feelings. Like a lot of people have caught on in the comments, right now they don't have the pads on. It's hard to assess a defensive player when they don't have pads on. They can't be as physical, and for a player like Brandon Carr, who's a taller, stronger cornerback, who's not as fast as other cornerbacks, that's his game. He wants to come up to the line, play the hand fight, chuck you and try to knock you off your route. And you can't really do that well without pads on. So we have to really see and wait how he develops and where he goes. I'm still confident in his ability to play, especially with the two great safeties we have deep. It kind of just fits his game perfectly, him and Jimmy Smith's, to be 100% honest, where they come to the line, they want to press you, they want to play close, and they have a chance of getting beat deep. But with two great safeties back there, it's going to be hard to beat them deep. Jimmy Smith is better at the recovery than Brandon Carr, only because Jimmy Smith is faster. But I think Brandon Carr, when he gets the pads on, he'll normalize, he'll become a player that we all expect to see and to make plays for the Ravens down the line. Thank you so much for your question, Peter. And we'll move on to the last question of the show. And it comes from Simon. And Simon asks, what is your opinion about Marty Morhinweg? And how does he compare to our past coordinators? Thank you so much for your question, Simon. And I'm not confident in Marty Morhinweg's ability to be an offensive coordinator and call plays yet. Last year was a very tough season, but you also have to understand that he took over for a coordinator that was fired, which means he was already starting at a disadvantage. It wasn't his scheme. He actually didn't, always have the players that he wanted in the starting position. And there's a lot of little things you have to change. He has to use that old verbiage and different things like that. So this year is his first season with a true start. He got all off season to study, all off season to make plays, to get to know the players. And now we're going to see what he can do and put it intact. When it comes to past coordinators, I'll give you guys a quick ranking. I might do a video about this later. But Gary Kubiak's number one. Gary Kubiak's the most talented. He wasn't the most beneficial for the Ravens, but he was the most talented. Number two, in my opinion, is Jim Caldwell. Again, he was very impactful for the Ravens as he's the offensive coordinator when we won our Super Bowl. But also, I think he has real talent. He coached Peyton Manning for all those years. He's currently the head coach in Detroit. I do think that he's a very talented coordinator. Number three, I would do Cam Cameron. Cam Cameron put in a lot of time here. He helped Joe Flacco mature. And to be honest, when Jim Caldwell, won the Super Bowl, he was using Cam Cameron's playbook, but he added little things in there. So again, Cam Cameron's a good coordinator. He's smart. He just doesn't have the play call IQ that you need in the NFL. You see guys who have these play call IQ and they make it far. He has a good scheme, but not good play call IQ. And then the last two, you have Marty Morhinweg, who's our current coordinator. Now, the book's not written off on him yet. This season might be a great season for him, but this is where I have him ranked right now. And last, Mark Trestman. I just think that he's not talented, and I don't think he's good at play calling. I don't think he's good at installing an offense. I just think he's a bad choice for a coordinator. So thank you so much for your question, Simon. And that is the end of the episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to TheRavensSpace on YouTube. Follow us on different social media channels. Buy a t-shirt if you want. Also, check out our Patreon page where you guys can help us succeed, and we'll give you some great things in return. Thank you guys so much, and go Ravens.